Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there. So please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money. So check it out and throw some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks. Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try and make your world a little weirder. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Weird Niall.
And I dropped the weird from my name for this week. I just was thinking, normally I'm talking about a bunch of weird bullshit. And I figured this time I would just talk about normal stuff, like what I've been having for breakfast, how's work going, how's the project at work, all the really normal guy stuff. Baseball, probably. I don't know. I haven't picked a sport yet, but probably baseball.
I think we're entering like I was about to say we're entering spring training, but that doesn't make any fucking sense because it's winter. But I've picked up the weird side of things. You're taking the real normal run this week. I'm actually recording this entire episode upside down.
Yes.
I'm trying a new thing where I'm hanging up. I do not remember what show I'm thinking of that someone has a thing where they hang upside down and like do crunches on the fucking door frame. But there's that kind of trope of like you can of like the person who's like hangs upside down like that. I'm doing that. I'm like a bat this week. I'm really I'm trying to live that weird life.
Yeah, Niall's suspended upside down for this episode. He's wearing mismatched socks. He's wearing his shirt inside out, but you can tell that there's maybe some sort of like graphic design on the front that's, very colorful. Niall's been, his interests lately have been goo and different noises that he can make with his armpit, just like a bunch of weird stuff, which, at the end of the day, the thing that I'm realizing about our sort of turn here that we're both taking, you with taking on the weird stuff I just described, me taking on the normal guy stuff. Absolutely none of it has anything to do with what we typically talk about on this show, which could be a problem maybe. I don't know.
But like it does kind of have to do. People come to this show for our relationship, for our camaraderie,
mm-hmm.
and in this case, I think that me hanging upside down with where I'm wearing just a towel and no pants is really
yeah.
I think that says a lot about our relationship and that kind of wacky dynamic that the It Gets Weird fandom has come to know and love.
Yeah, for once in my fucking life, I get to be the straight man to somebody else's bullshit. It's fun to wear the pants every once in a while, and that's what I'm doing today. Niall, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay, I'm just joking. It's a joke. I actually researched some weird ass shit this week. Is that okay? Can I talk about that? Do I have permission?
You're kind of creeping on my area, but I'll allow it. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think you're going to have to jump in with some, let's call it color commentary, as I talk about this weird stuff, and maybe I can eventually get back to putting that weird in front of my name, just like you're doing.
This is go ahead. I'm ready.
Okay. Niall, I don't know if you've been watching how insane I've been on social media lately.
You've been sending me more stuff on Twitter than you really ever have. I don't usually get like Twitter DMs just from you specifically. Like normally I get a text or really yeah, just mainly like we tend to text more than we send stuff on Twitter. Unless I see some like I remember I sent you something on Twitter when they announced the deluxe reissue of the Evangelion full series Blu-ray.
Yes.
And I was like, I need to make sure Kyle sees this. But I've been just getting like conspiracy stuff from you lately, and so I don't know. I don't know what to expect, like how you came across these specific things, whether it has anything to do with what we're talking about today, because it's been a little varied.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, when I research, anytime I research this stuff, I end up ping ponging on a bunch of different topics and things and going off into rabbit holes and being like, oh shit, this isn't even the thing that I'm researching. I got to get back into it.
Yeah.
The good thing about that is it doesn't like tell you what I'm actually researching.
Yeah, you really are doing the thing where you send out when like a missile is coming at you, and you just like fart out a bunch of flares
Yeah.
to like make it like mess with the heat signature tracking. And,
Yeah.
and that seems to be your kind of approach in not telling me what you're researching right now, because you've gone from just silence to just sending me little flares of different content that really throws me off the trail. So I don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
Did you watch Top Gun Maverick or anything lately? Is that where this is coming from?
No, I think I think it's honestly the ADHD if I'm being honest, but
Fair.
I just have been like all over the place, and frankly, I think also part of it has to do with like usually once or twice a week I'll like come over to your place and I'll just be like, "Did you hear about this crazy alien shit?" And you'll be like, "Oh no," or "Oh, that sounds familiar." And normally I can do that, and now I have to send it through DMs and stuff. So I think that's also part of it, to be honest.
It could be that lack of face to face connection.
Yeah,
I can see that.
But the point is, I've been on a really serious weird UFO case kick pretty much ever since researching Paul Benowitz and Richard Doty, which was the 3-parter from a few weeks ago now. So recently I stumbled on an odd UFO related case, or I guess kind of tangential to UFOs. UFOs are they're a part of it. But when I first kind of heard about this, I actually didn't know that UFOs and aliens were involved. And then as I read more about the case, I was fully hooked by the very strange details. And let me also put it this way. Have you ever seen an article about one of our topics that the title of the article instantly had you going, I'm so charmed by whatever the hell is going to be, whatever is in this story, I have to know about this?
I mean, yeah, I have like just done a deep dive based off of an article title before, so I think I do fit that criteria. The like pancake baker, the pancake aliens were one
Yeah.
where it was just like, this guy got pancakes from what he described as Italian looking aliens. That really just made me go, huh, that seems like something I need to bring to the table here for the show. So I think I'm aware of what you're talking about.
Well, we'll uncover what exactly it was that drew me to this topic. But I saw this article, and honestly, maybe this is a problem with me, because when I saw this article, I was like, well, I love that. I love everything about that. But let's get into it so that we can kind of figure out why what this is, because we don't even know what this is. I haven't even gotten into it yet.
Yeah, let's cut the fucking preamble and get on with the show, Kyle. Come on.
Sorry,
we got time frame here.
I know.
I got stuff to do.
Okay, now we're going. Fine, I'll cut to the chase. We're going to talk about the Gulf Breeze 6. Okay, are you happy?
Okay.
Are you aware of that?
I'm at least okay. This is a term that I've seen on, I think the I don't know what it's actually called, the Biblioteca Pleiades website. I think I've seen it referenced, but I have not looked past the fact that it exists.
Well,
so, I have virgin ears when it comes to this topic right now.
Good, we love that. There is so there is a Gulf Breeze UFO and the Gulf Breeze UFO flap that also happened, which is also sort of related to this. Although at first it does not really seem like it would be, but this is an interesting story. So this is about these 6 Army intelligence analysts who were in the NSA. Sorry, they're part of the 701st Military Intelligence Brigade with the NSA. They are working at a base, the largest NSA base outside the United States at the time. This is 1990, in Augsburg, Germany. And
Okay.
all 6 of these people in this intelligence unit carry top secret security clearance. So that's cool and all, but not enough to pique my interest.
Because like we've covered all the levels above top secret clearance. Like
Yes.
when you get into the like fucking, the stuff that's only the wild levels of Freemasons that somehow have access to every like above presidential secret in the U.S. government.
Yeah, and then like the 13 Illuminati bloodlines and things like that, which are like essentially above everything as well, and all the different tiers that are in these different organizations.
The more you read about this stuff, the more you realize that maybe there are more people that have above presidential clearance than people who don't. It really seems like there's a lot of people like they really a grand unifying theory of like secret government shit is that the president knows nothing.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like the more
president's a real chump.
The more you believe about conspiracies and New World Order stuff, the more you have to accept that the president is actually completely feckless in comparison to just all the other organizations at play that are like everybody above him. Like you said, it's which is kind of funny. Like I imagine that's also like a really weird idea to contend with. Not that like any of it makes sense, but like with the QAnon people, like that has to be extra confusing for them when one of their ultimate guys was a president, right? Like that's kind of ironic.
Because Trump had stuff like new stuff before, and when he became president, like it was a figurehead thing, kind of like his power came from elsewhere. Like it really does feel like it was hard to rectify the fact that there's all these people above the president with like trying to make the current president at that time seem like the end all be all of like secret projects and like Machiavellian plans.
Yeah. Let me be clear that we, the Illuminati they have great bloodlines, but they still do all answer to me. And that's Trump.
Yep.
That's a pretty, wow. That just, that just sends up.
Is that the first time you've ever done that on this podcast?
I don't know. I can't do Trump. I think that's the first time I've attempted.
I'm really just gonna see how many presidents I can get you to do on this podcast, because I got Nixon, I'm
sure you got Bernie at some point.
I think you got, but he's never president. Come on.
Right. I'm sorry, but I was thinking president adjacent people. I've done all. Yeah, I wear many hats as far as my impressions go. Jesus, no. What the fuck was I talking about? Right. So
Gulfstream 6.
So here's the thing. They're all super secret. It's just like it's child's play in comparison to all the organizations that operate in secret above them, right? But for now, let's play in the world of the NSA, okay? So
so I'm spying on all of your records.
Yes.
I know everything you're looking at on the internet, and you're a naughty boy.
Illegally tapping everything.
Yeah.
Well, on top of that, these 6 analysts also end up basically holding these off work duty meetings where they're getting really into the paranormal. In fact, I listened to, not to get too far ahead of myself, but I listened to a Coast to Coast episode with one of the members of the Gulf Breeze 6. And they were specifically citing parapsychology and how important that study was in Germany, and how interested they all were in trying to conduct studies around that, but like they couldn't do it on like military, time and money, right? So in their free time, they're hanging out doing these paranormal meetings and trying to research this stuff. And part of their little paranormal hangouts was fucking around with Ouija boards.
Fantastic.
And this would also include, altered states of consciousness. Basically trying
to get high and play with Ouija boards.
yeah, they would just get absolutely blasted on some white Yoda, my favorite strain of marijuana to reference. and then they would try and contact like the ghost of, I don't know, Abraham Lincoln.
I'm sure there's a possibility that you're talking about like meditation and that kind of altered state of consciousness. But anytime we're talking about like a secret thing like this that we're talking about here, it just makes me remember all of the stuff that the CIA did with like LSD in the 60s.
Yeah, MK
and
Ultra.
70s. Yeah. And so I just think like they're getting blasted and playing with a Ouija board.
Yeah. I mean, the blasted part, at least according to them, is not a factor at all. But
Okay.
I do like to pretend that that's what happened. But when they say like altered states of consciousness, they are I think that what they're referring to is channeling spirits, and that would also include channeling religious icons, because it references here that one of the icons that they would attempt to channel was the Virgin Mary during one of their meetings.
Okay.
And what's extra strange about all this, beyond everything I just described, is that they are also believing that some of the messages that they're getting are coming from actual beings of some sort, and that these beings are imparting prophecies to them.
Okay.
So
are we talking like what kind of beings are we talking about here?
we're gonna get there eventually, but we're not there yet. But soon.
Okay.
So here's our little rundown of the people involved here. So we have Vance Davis, who is you could kind of think of as the main character of the Gulf Breeze 6, the cool one, you know.
Okay.
And then we have Kenneth Beeson, who I guess supposedly dabbled in hypnosis and was supposedly also interested in UFOs. They also had Annette Eccleston, Michael Hugstadt, Chris Perlock, and William Setterberg. And in early July of 1990, they give away some of their belongings. They burn some records and some books, and they go fucking AWOL.
Why do they burn records?
There's a lot of questions about why some of the things went down the way they did.
Okay.
There's another player that we're going to kind of get into, whose name is Anna Foster. She calls herself a psychic, and she was located at Gulf Breeze in Florida. Perlock from the Gulf Breeze 6, I guess, had met her in cryptology training in Pensacola before he ended up shipping off to Europe, which, by the way, all 6 of these people have training and, I think, backgrounds in cryptology. So they know all about like NFTs and bored apes or whatever. So they're very knowledgeable about that stuff.
I think you almost said stoned ape there,
did.
which is an entirely different thing.
I did.
Which I've almost tried to do a stoned ape episode before, but like it's so hard to do it without talking about like its biggest modern proponent being Joe Rogan, and I just don't want to get into that.
I think if we can't get Joe Rogan on the show to talk about it, then what's the point? But yeah,
I would not want to like.
It would be annoying, but it would also be kind of funny, I think. But the thing is, I'm a twisted fucking psychopath. So
yeah, you've got your Tumblr that says "Welcome to my twisted mind."
Yeah,
so
that's right.
I do know that you're really one of those kind of weirdos.
Yes. So Foster of the Gulf Breeze 6 had also become friends with one of the other members, Beeson, while they were stationed in Pensacola. So all of them, but Eccleston, who was the one woman of the Gulf Breeze 6, when they go AWOL, they are staying at Foster's apartment.
Okay.
What ends up happening is Eccleston, the woman, is caught by police at a campsite where she is just camping near Fort Pickens. Why? I don't know. I don't know what she was doing, but that's where they find her. So it's a little unclear at first why they just up and left and went AWOL. But it seems at least part of their reason for leaving is that they are trying to deliver a message from whatever entity they've been in contact with to the United States president.
Okay. What? Okay, I forget what year this. Have you said a year yet? Have you given me a point?
1990.
Okay. So, or that would be Clinton, right? Or would that be George Bush Sr.?
I think that's George Bush Sr. I don't know for sure, but I think so. We're just gonna have to slowly pull this apart. So we're gonna pick apart what they're doing.
Look, I have a lot of questions already, but I know that you probably have most of the answers if I just hold my little horses. Yeah, keep them right here in front of me and don't let them run free.
Yeah,
and all over this podcast.
Hold the reins.
I'm gonna let you unravel.
Hold the reins, and then I'll give you the signal when you got to smack that horse on its rump to get it really going. Okay.
Okay.
There's also, I guess, reports that they were trying to speak with an author of UFO books and conspiracies, which may have been Bill Cooper, which kind of tracks because there was actually a big UFO event happening at Gulf Breeze just 2 years earlier during the sightings of the Gulf Breeze UFO, which is its own story. We definitely have to just cover that in its own episode. But also on top of that, we'll get to this later, but another thing that was going down at the same time that these people go AWOL is MUFON in Gulf Breeze.
Oh, okay.
MUFON ends up going to Gulf Breeze because of all the UFO craze that had happened in the last couple of years since 1987 to 1988. So that's also part of it.
Okay, so that is the one thing so far of what you've sent me this in the last week that is tied to everything. Okay,
yes. Yeah.
So I've been trying to figure out which one of the things that you've DM'd me about, including revelations about possible JFK conspiracy stuff. And a couple different UFO things, but the MUFON is the one. I got it now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was looking at MUFON's website because of this specific story. So, what's a part of the reason that this gets so muddy is the statements that come from the Pentagon and also the people who would end up being spokespersons for the Gulf Breeze 6 after they're apprehended and put in detention. And what's strange about the statements is that a lot of it ends up getting retracted or denied by the former soldiers. On top of that, so we have these mixed statements that will come out from the literally the Pentagon, but we also have the weird statements by the members of the Gulf Breeze 6 who are on a paranormal mission, remember. So a little strange and very, very muddied.
So they're on a mission from God. They have to get the money to the top of this building in Chicago by a certain time, and they're going to drive overnight from New York, I think, to Chicago. No, where are they? I don't know.
Yes.
So far, I'm just trying to make this make this fit onto the timeline of Blues Brothers because that's just where my head is right now for some reason.
Well, wait until we get to the part where they run a bunch of Nazis off a bridge, because that's probably my favorite part.
I hate Ohio Nazis. Great.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
Well, everybody who's rational does.
Everybody who matters.
Yes, everybody who matters. Thank you. So there's also, including everything that I just mentioned, there would also be acquaintances of the Gulf Breeze 6 who would get interviewed, and they would give statements about the beliefs of the Gulf Breeze 6, and then the Gulf Breeze 6 would come out and be like, no, we don't believe that. So the big problem with this story is just a confounding amount of different statements and retractions and things that just that don't make sense.
Yeah. Why was she camping?
Yeah, that is the big one.
What does that have to do with anything? Why did they burn some records? Did they think there was satanic imagery or something on them, or not? Maybe not satanic, but whatever the opposite of what entity is channeling shit into them from another plane. I don't know. Like those are things that are currently like is like the works of like Queensryche offensive to this alternate dimensional being?
Right.
So they had to get rid of any Queensryche records.
Yeah, which they did, by the way. That is a part of it, and also kind of confusing when you don't understand the context you just brought up. But yeah, basically, these people are the Gulf Breeze 6 are very interested in the paranormal and probably also UFOs. And they end up making it to Gulf Breeze, like I said, around the same time that the MUFON convention was about like kind of ending on July 8th. The story goes that all six of them, just a few days prior to getting there, were in Tennessee, where they got a van from and like bought it off of a friend and then drove it to Florida, and then actually arrived at July 9th. So the day after MUFON, actually, which is again another layer of like, well, were they actually interested in trying to get to MUFON? Unclear. But that is like one of the things
they fucked up their knowledge of time zones. You know,
Yeah.
They really thought that they thought they were going to cross over some international date line, and they just fucked up.
Yeah, this is I think we can chalk this up to a bad case of jet lag from Germany while escaping the United States government, who have put out a global warrant for your arrest.
Yeah, that is a pretty high stakes thing. So right now we have like already by the time they buy this van and are driving to Florida, the U.S. government is after them.
Yes. Well, okay. I think so. I do believe I have it here somewhere when they put out the but I do believe that by the time that they're like AWOL, it is like known and their people are looking for them. They put out a global alert. But
Gotcha.
It's somewhere in my notes, I'm pretty sure. So eventually what ends up happening is Hugstat gets pulled over by the police in the van because they have a faulty taillight. And this is, again, the van that they picked up to drive them all down to Florida. And from July 13th to 14th, all six of them would end up getting arrested and detained, and then transferred to intelligence agencies at Fort Benning, Georgia, and Fort Knox, Kentucky. And that's where they would end up getting interrogated. They were then issued general discharges, and the weird thing that people always bring up about this case, they are let go with minimal consequences.
And this is after they've already like made like some sort of threats to the president, right? Like this is like a
no. They have not made threats to the president, but in statements, part of the thing that people seem to pick up about them, at least in one of the statements of the like numerous articles that would get statements from different people on the subject, they seem to have maybe wanted to deliver a message to the president. I think that it's more implying understanding what it is that they're doing, which we're still peeling away what's going on here. But I think it was more like they saw that this was a message of importance to prevent disaster.
Gotcha.
So we'll dig into that. But three of them, Beeson, Eccleston, and Hugstat, would return to Gulf Breeze, and they would get back in town within 3 weeks after they had been taken into custody. Beeson, I guess, returned because there were a lot of friends there that he had made. And we have here actually a newspaper article from August 4th, 1990, titled "3 Discharged Soldiers Return to Gulf Breeze Friends." And here's what the article says by Christopher Clausen in, I believe, News Journal. And it says, they're back. 3 of the 6 Army soldiers who left their posts in West Germany last month and were arrested in Gulf Breeze have returned to Northwest Florida. But it's not because of unidentified flying objects, a government cover-up of UFOs, or their belief in the rapture. We didn't really leave the Army. We left Europe, said Kenneth Beeson, 26, originally of Jefferson City, Tennessee. Beeson, Annette Eccleston, 32, of Connecticut, and Michael Hugstat, 19, originally from Farson, Wyoming, have returned to Gulf Breeze. Beeson was the only one of the 3 who agreed to talk Friday at the home of Anna Foster, where they were arrested July 13th and 14th before being taken to Fort Benning, Georgia, and Fort Knox, Kentucky. Beeson said he returned to the area because of friendships he developed here. He repeatedly stressed that the six are not acting as a cult and that they are just Christians whose study of the Bible led them to leave Europe. Beeson said they may eventually discuss many of the details of why they did what they did, but only as a group because the public has identified them as a group. It was Beeson's conversations.
I'm getting a lot of questions that my "we're not acting as a cult" shirt should already be answering.
Yeah, exact. That's so exactly. It's God. I'm fascinated.
The statement is so intense. Anytime you have to start out a statement by saying, these people and I, we're not a cult. We're not acting that way. We just are Christians that wanted to get out of Europe.
Yes.
I feel like that is just like a very intense thing that you have to be hiding something.
Yeah,
like
yes.
There has to be something more to it.
Yes, we did defect and go AWOL from the NSA in a German base because we were concerned about the rapture and we wanted to tell the president. But you have to understand, none of this comes from like a cult mindset. Okay.
This isn't really. We're not culty. We're just religious.
We're just
like it. Yeah.
We're just cult adjacent. Okay.
Yeah. The fact that we all wear uniforms that are all alike and the same type of sneakers doesn't mean we're a cult. We just got a good deal on the fashion.
Look, just because I'm a Christian fundamentalist does not mean I am part of a cult. But honestly, aren't most religious people cult adjacent too? Are you going to fault all religious people? Come on.
See, now that's an argument that I think you could. Well, you couldn't get it very far in America right now because but I think there is something to that. Like, what is the actual? I'm sure there's definitions of like what's the definition of a cult versus a religion.
Well,
it's all belief systems.
We call them new religious movements now for a reason and not cults. So
yeah. Fair.
But here's how the article ends. It was Beeson's conversations with his friends and relatives that led them to speculate that the desertions were tied to UFOs, the rapture, and even the destruction of the Antichrist.
The destruction of the Antichrist, not the coming of the Antichrist?
No, they want to destroy the Antichrist.
Oh, okay. So they want to destroy the Antichrist because when he comes, the rapture is happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
The six were arrested because they were absent from their top secret jobs in Augsburg, West Germany. Because of their classified jobs, the army charged them with desertion. After their arrest and an investigation, they were reduced in rank, fined, and given general discharges by the army last month. The army originally said the six had something to do with an unknown cult called the End of the World. Beeson said he had no idea where the army developed that theory. The army later retracted that statement.
Sounds like someone who leads an end of the world cult is getting their tendrils in tie up in the military.
Yes,
the NSA.
Yes, so
they must have above presidential clearance if they run an end of the world cult.
They gotta. So very strange statement there, especially given that it was official military stance that they were a part of this cult and they had to retract that. And people were asking, well, okay, how did these six people get across international waters in airports without being detained? How did they sneak out? There is a July 19th, 1990 New York Times article that maybe kind of gives us a hint. And it says here, the Pentagon said that two of the soldiers went on unauthorized leave from their unit about 2 weeks ago and never returned. At the same time, two other soldiers from the unit vanished, and officials suspected that two more who were on leave would not return. Military authorities issued a worldwide alert for the six soldiers on July 9th. Okay, so that is the day that they arrive in Gulf Breeze is the 9th. And so what this is saying is basically that two soldiers were already on leave but seem to not be returning are two of the Gulf Breeze six. And then two went on authorized leave, and then two just straight up disappeared. So accounting for all six of them, most of them were on some sort of leave, and then two of them just decided to kind of vanish at the same time as that stuff. So that's kind of the explanation.
Basically just like they were able to get into the country before it was like a massive like they got really noticed that they were gone. Like
Yeah.
they were able to get most of the travel out of the way before the alarm bells were raised. So that's how they got it. They got, from Germany to Florida.
Yeah, and then another article makes mention that they may have used forged leave papers as well. So they were they pulled a fast one on the NSA and the military there. So
Yeah, this seems like it was pretty well planned in terms of like there was a lot of thought put into how to get all of this stuff across and how to make all of this happen the way it did. So the fact that this all got undone by a busted tail light is really kind of funny to me.
yes, well, and here's one alternate explanation that some of the more conspiracy brain folks like to put out there. But
Okay.
some believe that the intelligence officials concerned with their desertion were fully aware that they were going to do it, that they did it, and they simply were tracking the entire journey.
Oh, okay.
So
it's just basically saying that they knew it was going to happen, and they were like, instead of trying to stop them, they just let it happen and monitored.
yeah,
But for what reason?
that's a good question. that's a good question. So we have all these different statements. I mean, I have straight up like one of the things that I found was basically somebody who had hunted down as many articles about this exact subject as they could find, and they get reported on in a lot of places. So in one of these articles, which is titled 6 Soldiers Here to Kill Antichrist in the Pensacola News Journal from July 19th, 1990, they talk with Robert Hall, who is an Army spokesperson, and he's just like, I don't know how all 6 of these people managed to get to the United States from Germany. They talked to Stan Johnson, who was one of Beeson's contacts from Tennessee, and supposedly was one of the people who picked them up from the airport on July 6th when they went to go buy the van and like had finally made it to the United States. And he says, quote, he did mention about going to Pensacola for a UFO convention. So that is partly, I think, where the whole MUFON connection comes from, is this person's statement.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then in Europe, the European Stars and Stripes was quoted in the same article. And that, I guess, was a reporting that the crew of 6 were going to Gulf Breeze to kill the Antichrist. So
and the Antichrist is going to be in Florida for some reason. I mean, like, I guess it's got to go somewhere.
Yeah, and might as well be Florida, right? That honestly, the Antichrist appearing in Florida was not the part of all of this that I questioned, to be honest.
I mean, that's fair. I just like, it. The Antichrist has always felt like this massive figure that would do something very either like insidious or large scale. And I guess I guess we have found out that you can do large scale things in Florida from recent events. But it's yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting that it's just like, oh yeah, I'm just hanging out with the old people. Hanging out with Antichrist, hanging out with blue hairs down in Florida.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's there's a lot of gaps of information in this story, and we'll talk more about the Antichrist stuff in a bit. But
okay. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what being was channeling them this information. I'm like, that part is still outstanding in my brain of like, I want answers, but I don't know if they exist.
Yeah. So reports also people talk to the MUFON officials who basically say we can't actually tell you whether or not any of these people attended MUFON this year. But we do get confirmation that Anna Foster, the Gulf Breeze psychic who let the group come and stay with her right before they get arrested, did go to MUFON.
Okay, so at least one of their friends was there if they didn't go.
Yeah. And then in the article, soldiers were to expose UFO scam, Sister says, in the Pensacola News Journal of July 20th, 1990. The article talks about Beeson's sister and her husband, Carolyn and Charles Reed, who basically, the article talks about how Beeson's sister and her husband, Carolyn and Charles Reed, were talking. They were quoted as saying that Beeson was going to, quote, expose a government cover-up of reports that aliens have visited Earth. But they kind of make a mention, I guess, in the article that neither Carolyn or Charles Reed were taking Beeson very seriously when he said this. But that's one of the things that
makes sense.
Yeah, that's one of the things that they reference. And again, this is what I'm talking about, where like they have these statements from family members and acquaintances that are just like adding to whatever the fuck is going on here. This lore. But it continues on and says, quote, the Reeds and Beeson also told them that Foster had introduced him to a UFO group that believed the government was covering up alien visits to Earth. If anybody should be arrested, it should be that lady, Charles Reed told the News Journal about Anna Foster. And the article finishes up with, quote, the Mutual UFO Network held a symposium on UFOs 2 weeks ago, July 6th through 8th, but the group did not endorse any position on a government cover-up, said Don Ware, a Fort Walton Beach representative of the group. Although Ware said Foster had attended the symposium, Foster refused comment again Tuesday night. So one of the other sticking points with this story is that people seem to think that maybe this Anna Foster psychic person was part of the reason that they had these like UFO beliefs entangled in their whole story. But yeah, it's like I said, very unclear.
There's also like a whole history of like UFO Christian crossover cult stuff.
Yes.
Like that's a thing that we've covered a couple of them on episodes of the show. I've done at least one. That's a very like common thing for this kind of group. Now, most of them are not made up of NSA secret agents that have been sucked into this whole thing through getting high and using a Ouija board, which I know is not technically true, but it is in my brain. The UFO connection is not surprising to me. I'm just curious where it comes in terms of like the actual belief, if it got tacked on kind of at the end by this Forrester person, or if it is central to like whatever being was channeling them these messages.
Yeah. Well, we still have a lot to get through. So
I'm sure we do. I'm stuck on this being, and I'm waiting for you to get there.
I fully understand. So the July 19th article from the News Journal that was reporting where they were being held and stuff, they also talked to a Major Joe Padilla, who is a spokesman for the Pentagon, and he basically says that he doesn't know why these 6 people ended up defecting from Germany, and he didn't know anything about their religious beliefs. But then Gulf Breeze Police Chief Jerry Brown was also asked for comment, and here we have a quote from the article, which says, quote, when he was told of the Stars and Stripes report Wednesday, Brown said, I don't believe that. Who is the Antichrist? If the cult had talked about destroying the Antichrist, that person should have a name, he said. So,
yeah, I mean, name the Antichrist. Start flipping people over and checking their taints,
Yes. So, I guess according to a Georgia MUFON section director, who I guess his source is a Fort Benning doctor, which is, I believe, one of the places these people are being held. The Gulf Breeze 6 actually claimed to believe that they did know the name of the Antichrist. And that name was Ed Walters. And Ed Walters, who we would have to do an entire episode, but Ed Walters is the primary witness of the Gulf Breeze UFO incident. This is the incident that would inspire a flap in the area. It's a very famous case. We got to do it at some point. So they think that the eyewitness to the Gulf Breeze UFO incident from 1987 to 1988, Ed Walters, is the Antichrist. Or at least according to this like source that this one guy got, who a person from MUFON is quoted as saying, you see where I'm going with this? It's so many weird...
Yeah.
so much of this story is people trying to get statements from people who made statements from people who made statements. You know, it's really weird.
It's a real game of telephone of like my cousin's sister's ex-boyfriend that is into like spiritualism was able to get this information, and they know someone who made a statement, and it's just a whole telephone game that is making this all incredibly complicated and also hard to parse.
Yes. So August 4th, 1990, the letter to MUFON International Director Walt Andrus, this section director from Georgia, wrote, quote, "In regards to your request that I try to meet with the soldiers here at Fort Benning, Georgia, who were involved in the recent end-of-the-world deal at Gulf Breeze, Florida, the following negative report is submitted. I was unable to meet with the soldiers who were being held in the stockade, and my fraternity brother, who is a doctor at the base hospital, couldn't get me in to see the two men who were on the psychiatric ward. All I could get from the doctor was relatively the same as that which was out on the media wires. The soldiers had originally met while stationed together in Germany, and they believe that the UFOs are works of the devil. They also supposedly claim that Ed Walters is the Antichrist, and that is why the UFO activity has been so heavy in the Florida Panhandle. I'm sorry I wasn't able to get anything better on this, but the people at the Provost Marshal's office weren't very receptive to the idea of a UFO investigator."
Okay. So we have the Antichrist is bringing UFO activity, and we have a guy's name here. And they were do we know if Ed Walters went to this MUFON thing?
I actually don't know. But maybe when we do the when we do the Gulf Breeze UFO episode, we can find out.
Fair. I was just checking because like then it would make sense that they went like we're going to that specific place to be like, oh, he's there, we're gonna go just kill him, and maybe we'll catch him.
Well,
you know, when he's checking out of his hotel the next day.
Well, but Ed Walters is the guy who witnessed the Gulf Breeze UFO. He is the reason MUFON is at that location. So I'm assuming he's still there. Whether or not he's going to MUFON. Now, here's some other fun little details that we'll dig into in a little bit later. But Vance Davis, also self-described as basically being taught in the, quote, Silva mind control method.
Oh, God.
Which was held in Alex Merklinger's school in New York. And through this self-hypnosis and active imagination, Davis claimed that he could interact with entities.
Okay. Yeah, the Silva. I've been wondering if we're ever going to get the Silva stuff again. That's people might remember the Silva mind control method from the Andy Perro three-part episode.
Yep.
And also some other stuff. I think with some of the super soldier things, I think they use that kind of stuff.
It's almost like it's almost like meditative, right? They call it self-hypnosis, but you can enter a meditative state that lets you, do a bunch of different things. But in this guy's case, it can channel entities or whatever,
Yeah, you can do all sorts of stuff. It's all like unlocking the full power of your brain and stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, the Silver Mine stuff is like one of those things that I had to read a bunch about when I was doing the Andy Perro stuff, and it is the kind of thing that my brain just like rejects as like I can't
take it seriously.
Yeah,
understandable. Davis also talks about his fellow Gulf Breeze Sixer. Beeson, and says that he was practicing hypnosis techniques, which they get from an interview that's published later in 1995 in a MUFON periodical called Case Briefs, Explorations, and Review. And there's an interesting passage in here where the interviewer asks Davis, "Did you receive information from sources other than the Ouija board?" And Davis replies with, quote, "The UFO documents came from a woman with Ashtar Command in Germany. That was Cooper report and other. That was the Cooper report and other documents. We didn't really get anything from work, but we started seeing things differently. The first thing that really got us moving, and they didn't put this in the statements, was the Iran earthquake that year in 1990, because we were told about it 30 days before it occurred. We were also doing hypnosis." And the interviewer says, "Was Beeson hypnotizing you?" And Vance Davis responds, "Yeah, it was a relaxed state like Edgar Cayce used to do. We were doing a lot of parapsychology research, a whole lot of it. We did tarot cards and all that kind of stuff. We were trying to disprove all of this stuff until the Ouija board happened and some hypnosis stuff. Now, Davis would go on to write a book titled Unbroken Promises, A True Story of Courage and Belief. And here is where we get some more details about the sessions that they would have together in Germany, as well as the woman that he just referenced. So here's what it says, quote, "This third session ended up giving us the name of a woman in Munich that would have some information for us on the alien and UFO situation. The woman's name was Gabriel. We did indeed find that woman in Munich, and she gave us some information and documents that were interesting, to say the least. That paperwork was taken by the officer that arrested Mike in Pensacola. We never saw it again."
Okay, so it got confiscated and hidden. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, man. Okay, so they were doing all this parapsychology stuff. They were meditating, going into hypnotic trances and channeling beings all along with this Ouija board thing. And that all makes sense. Like I get what they were doing, and I get what they were. So they went in trying to disprove this stuff. Then it started working, and they created a cult.
Yeah, which that's also a little bit, that's also kind of the flavor of parapsychology, right? Like, oh, we're going in to disprove this, but also we have these beliefs that we hold dear to, and we let them inform our methods and our like what the results mean to us and all this stuff. So, yeah, but I guess the Ouija board was the tipping point for them. They also believe that they were interacting with biblical icons, specifically Mark and Mother Mary. And I guess that Mother Mary supposedly came through the Ouija board to them specifically to answer questions for Annette Eccleston, who, quote, grew up a Catholic but was no longer a practicing Catholic.
Okay.
So...
But I guess the thing I keep coming back to is, like, why? Like, why would Mother Mary care if this person was no longer a practicing Catholic? But at the same time, I guess that's kind of a question that you just have to like just shove down into yourself.
Well,
because
I think the implication here is that it influenced what they were getting out of these sessions, right? Because like if you talk like one of the leading thoughts, but like the thing that people who are trying to like rationally explain the Ouija board phenomenon is that there's like this sort of subtle movement in your muscles that will move the what's it called, the planchette or whatever. Based on like what you're all already sort of like anticipating, which is part of why it feels like it's moving on its own, and it's a whole thing. But so I think the implication here is just that like that was a part of the influence on her in these sessions. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I know about like why Ouija boards supposedly work that way. Like if you don't just have like a dick friend that is moving in saying that they're not, a lot of times it's just like you go in expecting a thing and you make it happen. Your brain doesn't register that you're moving, but you are. Yeah. Okay. This is I want to know more. I guess the thing that I'm most fascinated with is like all the stuff they're channeling, and I keep trying to figure out. I keep wanting to just like know more about the beliefs of this group, as opposed to like, we know their mission of going to kill the Antichrist, but how did they get there?
Yes. There's also some evidence to suggest that there were more than just 6 of them originally who were interested in this. There's a couple different things here, but the most notable one is the Reeds, Beeson's sister and brother-in-law, are quoted as saying that there were 12, not 6 people prepping. And in the news journal, it's reported, quote, he also told the couple that before the second coming of Christ, the group, which Beeson said numbers 12, would emerge and try to convert people to believe in Christ, the Reeds said. So there's a very, I don't know. That's very funny to me that it's just like, oh shit, the rapture is happening. Okay, get out there. There's 12 of us. Let's just see how many, if each of us can get at least 2 people converted, then think about how many people we're potentially saving, and those people convert some people. And I mean, look, the rapture's happening right now. We got to move fast.
Look, that's just Christianity. Like that's just how that shit works. But the fact that they're saying there were originally 12 also makes some sense because like there were 12 disciples.
Yeah.
And so like having that as your number for this cult, it makes some like thematic sense.
Yes.
But I am curious, what happened to the 6 other people? Did they just realize I don't want to waste my time with this, or were they? Are they still out there? Are they still at large? You know?
Yeah. So on top of everything, probably one of the weirdest aspects and one of the reasons people have kind of glommed onto this story and won't let go of it is a, quote, unsigned typewritten note presumably sent to the U.S. Army and all the major TV networks and wire services demanding the release of the Gulf Breeze 6. And this is reported on August 16th, 1990 in the Gulf Breeze Sentinel. The message was also reported by the well-known UFO researcher, scholar, Jacques Vallée, in the book that I'm holding in my hand right now, the book Revelations, Alien Contact and Human Deception, which was really fun for me because it's not often that I get to like crack open a book to like read about one of my subjects. Something about that, like having that tactile moment is like, oh man, I feel like I'm a real researcher.
Yeah, it does feel slightly better than just sitting here Googling like alien shit on like DuckDuckGo,
yes,
or on Google, like comparing the two, because you got to go both ways to try to figure out, because Google has so many fucking sponsored ads now that it makes it hard to find anything. So you gotta go DuckDuckGo for your conspiracy research.
Yes. So we have a number of sources, including Jacques Vallée, who report that this note is delivered, and basically it's given to supposedly the Army, but also a lot of news stations. And here's what the message says. Quote, ABC, NBC, CBS, AP, UPI, U.S. Army, free the Gulf Breeze 6. We have the missing plans, the box of 500 plus photos, and the plans you want back. Here is proof with close-ups cut out. Next, we send the close-ups and then everything unless they are released. Answer code AUGSBB3CM.
Okay, so they have some documents that the Gulf Breeze 6 took? Is that what this is?
We don't know.
Okay.
I wish I could tell you.
So this is some very vague blackmail because we don't know what they're actually holding over anyone's head.
Right.
It's just we have these documents that we're going to follow up with the closer shots of, but no one knows what these things are.
Yeah, and this is I don't know exactly what this is, but it was a teletype communication. And 3 days later, the Gulf Breeze 6 are released after this message is reported on. So
I guess it works.
Yeah, regardless of us knowing what they're referring to, I think the idea is that it's supposed to be some sort of credible threat to somebody, probably the military, I guess.
Maybe it's the alien stuff that was going to be released. Like it's proof that the government was hiding aliens from us or something.
Yeah. So
okay,
that's kind of the core story, but there's some more stuff I want to get into. So there's some sort of theories about what happened here. The really, really basic one is basically just that they are very impressionable and young and too open-minded, and that's literally what happened here. And there is some level of incompetence with them being able to like slip through detection at these airports and go AWOL for as long as they did. That's kind of the basic explanation, and that they were just like influenced by somebody or whatever it was they were doing. They influenced each other. Who knows? Now,
theory number one is they were kind of young and stupid.
Yes.
And so they just, things got out of hand because they kept like yes-anding each other.
Yeah. And I can also tell you with certainty with that at least Vance Davis is like a Christian fundamentalist. Like that is who he is. Like that's his thing.
Okay.
So I'd assume that there's some relatively similar beliefs with the rest of the group. There's also a researcher that put out an interesting idea, George P. Hansen, who wrote a book. I don't remember the book, The Trickster and the Paranormal. And in that book, he brings up some familiar names in reference to this particular case. So here's what he says in The Trickster and the Paranormal. Quote, Richard Doty was apparently involved with the dubious Ellsworth UFO case before he entered AFOSI, which is Air Force intelligence. Why then was he made a special agent? Given the sensitive nature of that agency's work, an extensive background check must have been done, and his caper at Ellsworth must have come to light. It is plausible that Doty was recruited by AFOSI precisely because of that. His personal interest in UFOs may have been useful to AFOSI, and his unreliability could have been an asset because he could be easily discredited if he was caught in something that might embarrass the agency. The plausibility of this scenario is strengthened by the case of Simone Mendez. Her story appeared in Just Cause in 1991 after documentation supporting her report became available via the FOIA. It leaves many questions unanswered, but it implicates AFOSI.
All right, so we're back on our disinfo tip here.
Yes. So that seems to be one of the theories, is that these people are these sort of useful weirdos, if you don't mind me using the term, to the military for whatever reason. Here they're sort of suggesting that they're easy to discredit, but there's a lot of other reasons that people kind of try to like make it make sense. You know what I'm saying? So, and Simone Mendez was like also, I believe, a military person who had, I don't know much about her story, but also its own episode. But that's kind of the general idea. So as the 1990s went on and the Gulf Breeze 6 would get interviewed, but this is in particular, Davis would get interviewed. He'd be on a number of programs, including Coast to Coast with Art Bell in 1994. But then also in 1993, the 6 of them were on the show Sightings, where they explained their 5 predictions for the future that they'd received from the Ouija board. There's actually a whole bunch of predictions. I believe, let me see here. They had 85 predictions that these people supposedly got from their interactions with the Ouija board. But here were 5 of the big ones. One, there would be a gas leak and explosion in New York City in 1993. The royal families of Europe would collapse in 1993. The United States of Europe would be formed in 1993. There would be an earthquake in California of magnitude at least 8.3 on the Richter scale, and there would be an earthquake in Seattle, and Mount Rainier would erupt. And then I guess they also said on this interview that if all of those predictions took place, then all 6 of them would go into hiding for 6 years, because these events would trigger a 6-year state of devastation around the world.
Okay. So, and if I can't remember everything, but I don't think all 6 of those came. I definitely know that the United States of Europe didn't exist.
No, and there is.
But I don't think any of those happened, right?
No, I don't think so. And there's also the Iranian earthquake, the thing that I mentioned earlier. It was a thing that happened, but like they came out well after the fact saying like, oh, we were informed of that event coming. But I don't think that
happens a lot.
Yeah. And I don't think that any of those, happened. But there's so many like, and to give you an idea of the kind of person that Davis is, because like, I think that I heard these from him. He would also bring up like, one of the ones that he brought up on Coast to Coast was that there would be these massive race riots and stuff, which is a classic with the Christian fundamentalist conspiracy crowd. Just things like that. But then there would be like random stuff like like U.S. stock market will crash, and there would be the youngest president since Kennedy would be elected in 92, and an explosion in New York City would like be a warning of more activity within the United States, and it would set off like I said, a gas leak or a terrorist bombing, and they had a wolf head symbol. There would be an explosion in outer space. There, all this stuff that they bring up that would be signals that their predictions were right. On top of that, Davis's book Unbroken Promises would also hold some really bizarre embellishing details on the beliefs that seem to be influencing the Gulf Breeze 6, but I think especially Davis, because this is his perspective. But like I said, he mentions how he got into Silva mind control courses as a teenager. Weird how this particular mind control course created two extremely weird people, huh?
More than two.
Two that we know of.
If you look into the Silva mind control stuff, it fucked up like quite a few people.
Yeah, I'm sure it did. Well, apparently, while he was in one of his trances, he claims that he met a green-skinned alien female called Kia. And I guess prior to meeting Kia, Davis had flat feet. And in a single night after meeting Kia, she corrected his flat feet.
So she really made his toes curl, and so he didn't have flat feet anymore?
Niall.
What? I thought it was a look, I thought it made sense as a logical conclusion that this person went through Silva mind control, met an alien named Kia Sorrento, and she fucking gave him the business.
Yeah, she sucked him silly in the moonlight. And
that led to his feet getting a permanent arch.
You ever get your dick sucked so good it permanently arches your feet from curling your toes? Well, that's what happened with this alien and this guy. And he says, quote, that Kia told me that she came from a planet 45 light years away from Earth that had been destroyed by another race. Her race, the Kiasians, were telepaths that were en route to Earth to assist the Alliance in protecting the human race and giving the craziest suck jobs and to everybody on planet Earth.
Fair enough. Look, if you can cure flat feet one at a time, you're already doing more for the world than a lot of people are. So
that's true.
Look, Kia, you're doing a good job. Yeah. I don't know why your name is Kia if you're from Kiasian or whatever. That's like, but that is like saying my name's Hugh and I'm a human. So I guess honestly, it works.
Yeah, she's out here fucking curing flat feet. Chiropractors could never cure a fucked up back. I don't know. What did chiropractors do?
Well, yeah. I mean, look. Depending on how much faith you put in the work of chiropractors, they can do everything from like help with some like tight back issues to heal everything in the world. And I don't think they go that far. But what if instead of people meeting aliens and like starting a sexual relationship, aliens just like come down and give you like one of those like things where they put the strap around your chin and like pull your spine and like a full like chiropractic adjustment?
Yeah, that's ideal.
Yeah. Look, all I'm saying is if aliens are that advanced and are that benevolent towards humankind, maybe they can make it so that I don't have a tight back whenever after I move a bunch of boxes.
Dude, what if aliens show up and they just start doing Reiki healing to everybody?
They start just like laying hands, And,
yeah.
I think that would honestly be interesting because like there is a pretty common component in alien stuff that they can like almost like energy healing kind of things and like cause advanced quick healing of things. All I'm saying is maybe that extends to chiropractic adjustments.
I can only hope. I mean, I am well on the way to having a bad fucking back because I have to sit in a chair all goddamn day. So they
can give you a ring dinger without. They can give you a full ring dinger without ever touching you.
They Reiki readjust my spine. I would love that.
Yeah.
So on top of all that, Davis says that when he joined the NSA, he was, quote, retrained in history. So here's what he says from his book directly. He says, quote, what I learned was why history happened, who history was, why or when history was. The dates in the book are not all that accurate. Those are accepted dates, not factual dates. To give an example, the founding of this country did not occur. The founding...
Which country, the U.S. or Germany?
The U.S.
Okay.
The founding fathers were already meeting many years before the advent. The war against England occurred. There was already a plan in place for the founding of a new country. It was not just a spur because British soldiers shot someone or the stand back. What the fuck? It was the series of events that happened over the period of 60 to 70 years, and they have been planning for a long time.
But that doesn't mean that the U.S. wasn't founded. Like, nothing he said there said that the U.S. wasn't like established. It just was that it was a longer process than we want to give it credit for. Which, like, if you want to get into like causality and history, sure, but it's
Here's
anyway.
The thing.
I just
Unbroken Promises has a lot of 1 and 2 star reviews. Niall, he may have incredible alien information and mind control techniques, but that doesn't make him a great writer. Can you not everybody has that gift.
I do like the phrase "who history was."
when history was.
Yeah, there's all these things. It seems like you just was like, I want to establish that history is different. How do I do that? By asking who history, what history, when history, why history. And I'm going to go through all of those things. But we got to start with the fact that that America was not founded immediately. It was a longer process. And then I feel like this is the thing that at the surface level, if you just left it at that, I would be like, you know what, maybe this is interesting. But as soon as he went any further, I would just shut the book and throw it out the window.
Well, trying to imagine an NSA agent getting in front of a whiteboard and just leading off with that, what you just described is truly incredible.
He just walked in. He walked into the office where there's a whiteboard that just said history on it, and he drew a question mark and then threw the marker down and stormed out of the room.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's kind of Davis has had some weird beliefs well before he was involved with all of this shit. And while he was stationed at Augsburg with the other group of the other members of the six, he claimed that they were in contact with an entity that they called Sapphire. That's SAFIRE.
Okay.
And this
so
is
they had to differentiate it from the stone.
Yes. Yeah. It's not actually the stone. It's kind of a cooler, hipper 90s way of saying sapphire, right? Like spelling sapphire, I guess I should say.
They really should have put like a Y in there somewhere.
Yeah, true. It should have been SAFYRE. That would have been way cooler. But this is, I guess, the entity that would deliver the prophecies to them about these like oncoming global events. And so as best we can sort of guess here, it seems that maybe Davis was a pretty significant influence on the like apocalyptic sort of rapture side of things. But again, there's so many things that are hard to confirm and come from all these different sources that, like, I mean, in that first article I brought up, like the 3 that were separated and went to Georgia, I believe were quoted at some point as saying like, oh, all that stuff about occult and stuff, we don't know what anybody's talking about. And it's Davis who's really running with a lot of the other side of things here, especially in this book.
Okay. So there's a possibility that a lot of the more wild versions of this story were just Davis himself, and everyone else was just like, oh, I thought we were just taking a road trip.
I do think that the others had beliefs, but it sort of sounds to me like maybe Davis was on the more Antichrist side of things, whereas others were more interested in UFOs and others were more interested in the paranormal. It just kind of, all I'm saying is that I think his influence is in that area specifically. But again, it's hard to confirm that as well. They could all just believe all this stuff, and it's really, really out there. I do know that Beeson was fully convinced that the United States government had an agreement with an alien race, and that there was a cover-up of that information. And I guess it's Beeson who was close to Anna Foster, the psychic, who would get wrapped up into all of this. So that is actually that's the story. There's not a lot of conclusions to be made, which is kind of the frustrating thing about it. I do believe that Davis is still around. I've seen him pop up in some weird, like, New World Order, like, conservative websites where he's, like, quoted or maybe has given an interview or something. But so I think he's still around. But as far as the events of the Gulf Breeze 6, it's hard. There's a lot of speculation, and that's a lot of the big details. There is, like I said, this super in-depth over 100-page document where you can get every single detail and article collected, but you can't make a lot of conclusions, unfortunately. And it seems that this apocalypse never happened that they thought was going to happen. I do have one weird ending note. So one of my big sources was a blog by a guy named Jack Brewer. In 2011, he made an observation that their unit, the Gulf Breeze 6's military unit, the 701st Intelligence Brigade, received an award the year after the events of the Gulf Breeze 6. And he says here, quote, "By all interpretations, the circumstance was a personnel catastrophe and security compromise of extreme proportion. However, the following year, 1991, the 701st Military Intelligence Brigade was awarded the prestigious Director of the National Security Agency's Travis Trophy. The unit was recognized as having made the most significant contribution in signals intelligence in the entire nation, second to none."
Huh. So these guys were gone by then. So either it was like the award was for covering up all of their bullshit, or I don't know what to think about that. That is weird.
It's very strange. But that's kind of the end note we have here. I just wanted to mention a couple sources so people can look up more information on this. We have the abovetopsecret.com forums have multiple big threads on this. The UFO Trail blog spot by Jack Brewer. There's that giant 117-page compilation of all the information on the topic by a guy named James Carrion, who's the author of The Roswell Deception. And then finally, Revelations by Dr. Jacques Vallée. And if you go onto any podcast app, you can also find the Art Bell archives, and this episode's on there. And yeah, that's the Gulf Breeze 6. It's one of those things where you were just blasted with information and there is no, like, it feels like there's basically no, like, conclusion, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what to say about it other than I was fucking tickled when I saw the article that was saying that a Ouija board informed 6 military intelligence members to go AWOL to fight the Antichrist. That's what put me on this path, and that's how I got here. So,
yeah. That is like a great log line to get someone interested. The story then turns into just like a lot of hearsay and weird nonsense. But that, like, the pitch for this movie is great. I think they might need to rewrite a couple of, like, take another couple passes on the script to make it kind of flow better and gel and come together. But the idea is great.
Yeah, it's another one of those things where, like, some people are, like, kind of winking and nudging in the direction of this is another sort of weird disinfo style psyop scenario to test the public that, like, because, like, you know, there's a lot of UFO related stuff in the past, especially when I did the disinfo episodes, where it's like, we're going to fake UFO events and see how the public reacts. So could this be we're going to fake an apocalypse Antichrist event and see how people react, you know, like, but UFOs are also tied up in it. So I don't know. It's very strange. It's very weird.
They were trying some new stuff with the NSA when they did this, and it didn't go over as well as just like faking UFO incidents. So they kind of pulled back on it. But you know, it was worth a shot.
Yeah, they were adding a little spice to their formula just to see if maybe it was gonna do a bit more for them this time. So Niall, that would bring me to the big question if you're ready.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So if you were instructed to perform tasks for a Ouija board, an entity that contacts you through a Ouija board, what's your hard limit as far as things that you would be willing to do? Like, are we talking, like, it's like, oh, I'd do all kinds of stuff, but, you know, I wouldn't murder, whatever it was Meatloaf said he wouldn't do for love, that's also my hard limit.
Yeah.
You know, what are you thinking? Where do you stop? If a Ouija board, if you are fully certain that there's an entity being like, hey, can you go like buy me this cool magazine? And then eventually that entity's like, hey, could you maybe like kill a couple guys for me? Where do you stop?
So this is an interesting question because I feel like I am I'm a person that is very, you know, I can do a lot to try to avoid having to like finish simple tasks. So I feel like I might agree to a lot of things that I wouldn't end up actually completing.
Right.
I would like keep pushing it off or like not remember it or like you know. But I guess like if we're talking about I'm averting some sort of world-ending apocalypse, then maybe I would have a bit more you know, motivation. But honestly, I think like anything that required me to like, I don't know, like leave the state would be kind of hard to get me to do.
Yeah.
I like to I like a routine, and I like to like have like I like to you know, I want to be able to play video games and watch movies and stuff. I don't really want to have to go and like travel across state lines to commit a murder. That just doesn't really vibe with my lifestyle. So I do think that my limits would be pretty low comparatively for some stuff like this. I think that like even if I thought there was some otherworldly being telling me to do some things, I would find ways to weasel my way out of it.
Okay.
So
yeah.
It honestly goes to a level of personal imposition that I think is lower than a lot of people, just because I kind of bristle at people telling me what to do, and I also am very able to like kind of weasel my way out of doing things.
Okay, well,
so
let me spice this question up. What if it's to prevent the apocalypse?
Fair. That might get me to leave the state, you know?
Yeah.
I think that might, as long as within like a 2-day turnaround trip, maybe I would do that, you know?
Yeah.
Like a long weekend. I'll commit to a long weekend to avoid the apocalypse.
Wednesday's not good. Can I do Friday through Saturday?
Yeah. Can I just like, so I only have to take like 1 day off of work. Can I just take like a long weekend, you know, take Monday off? And I won't kill anybody. I won't poison anybody. I will yell at someone from my car as I drive past. I think that might be my level of like social awkwardness that I'm willing to endure.
Okay, yeah. I see. I think the thing is we're kind of on the same page. I had to stop and think like, would I murder to stop the apocalypse? And the answer is honestly probably no. So that's probably also my hard limit. But I would definitely take a trip. Honestly, we're just kind of describing a really weird vacation, huh?
Yeah, I feel like we're coming upon some sort of like early 2000s indie movie that's like, you know, where you know, the two friends get this message from a Ouija board and they're not 100% sure it's real, but they decide to take the road trip anyway to like learn more about themselves and their friendship. I feel like that's honestly, we're like halfway to premiering at Sundance or Con, you know?
Yeah. I'd watch that movie. That sounds fun.
Yeah. It sounds heartwarming and life affirming.
Yeah. So, Niall, are you good to? I think that's about all I've got for this episode. You ready to take care of some business?
Yeah. So if you want to find us on the internet, you can find us on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook.com/ItGetsWeirdPodcast.
And we're on all your favorite podcatchers from Stitcher to Google Play to Apple Podcasts to Spotify. If you listen to podcasts somewhere, look up It Gets Weird, and we're probably there.
Check out twitch.tv/ItGetsWeird. We like to stream sometimes. I usually do it on the weekends with my buddy Colin. We occasionally have had some like party streams in the past with listeners of the show. So check it out. Give us a follow. That'd be awesome. We also have an email. Can you believe that shit? We have an email. itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. I don't have a podcast question of the week. I guess, what's your favorite early 2000s indie dramedy comedy, like a movie that Niall just described? Send us your favorites.
Your favorite early 2000s indie darling.
Yeah, let us know. And then patreon.com/itgetsweird. We have a $2 tier and a $5 tier. At the $2 tier, you get access to our bonus show, It Gets Weird TV, where right now we're going through the X-Files season 1. And then on the $5 tier, you get access to that show, plus another bonus show on the off weeks of It Gets Weird TV. Sometimes it's my show, sometimes it's Niall's show. Every once in a blue moon, it's a Garrett show. Sometimes we watch a movie. But the point is, at the $5 tier, you get bonus content every single week. Whether you donate to the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to our main show 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday. And you get access to our Discord where we're hanging out, chatting. We have had a couple new members showing up this month, and it's been fun talking to everybody. So if you want to join us, you got to donate. If you can't donate to the $2 or the $5 tier, we also have a $1 tier, which is just a tip. You don't get anything out of it. You're just saying, hey, I like your show. And if you can't donate money at all, please tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird podcast.
Thank you all for listening. This has been the show. This has been It Gets Weird. I've been Niall.
And I'm Kyle signing out.
Peace.